Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio, and it is Monday night, 9:30 p.m., March 15th, and I'm happy to be here. This is Child Abuse Prevention and Human Rights Abuse Prevention is Up to Us, and we're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast on the internet on blogtalkradio.com, and you can go to my Blog Talk Radio and sit in the chat room if you like, and if otherwise you can listen on the player. That's fine. But I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I do appreciate all the support and the friendship, and just all the awesome people that have reached out to me and have made such a difference in my life. So I just thank you all so much. And I've got friends in the UK and friends in Australia, friends in Canada, and friends in the United States, and friends all over the place, and I thank you so much. And I just think that without your support, it just wouldn't be the same, and it wouldn't mean as much. And I thank you so much for being here for me, because I know what it's like. This show, really, we've been covering Friday night and even on Sunday and all last week the Survivor to Thriver workbook, and I found that at www.ascasupport.org, and that's a great workbook. I'm really enjoying going through it. It's got a lot of good information in there, and it's really good for survivors of child abuse. I found that on the Adult Survivors of Child Abuse website, and that's a Morris Center program. And if you just go to www.ascasupport.org, you can pull up this Survivor to Thriver workbook yourself. It's a free download. You can download it, and they do offer that to anybody. It's free. And so that's when I found it, by going on that website, and I saw it, and I thought, hey, I'll go through it. It's 115 pages long, and we're on page 60. So if you want to go and pull that up, you're more than welcome to, because I'm just reading right from the pages. And, it's really good material for people who are walking through their healing, and for people who have grown up in an abusive home. And it just gives people an idea of what a survivor of abuse would experience as a child, right? So it's very, the topics of abuse are very sensitive. And like I always say this on all my shows, this is not a professional show. I don't hold any professional counseling certificates or therapist certificates. I'm just a person, a private citizen who pays to do this show, because I really think that, abuse is not talked about enough, and silence is the problem. And, growing up in an abusive home, of course, everybody wants it hushed up, because, of course, then the people that were the abusers will have to own up to it. And it's not out of revenge or anything that I'm doing this show or talking about abuse. It has nothing to do with it. It's really about showing people that they're not alone, first of all, and that they didn't deserve to be treated that way, and that we really need to change this for the better for children right now who are suffering and being abused in homes. And really, as a society, we really have to make the changes necessary to stop child abuse, So it's just so important. So this show, it's not a professional show. Listen at your own discretion, please. And you know what's good for you to listen to. And so if the topics of abuse bother you and you just feel uncomfortable, you would not be hurting my feelings by turning the show off, right? This is for people who are interested in child rights, human rights, and abuse issues, right? So I just want to make sure everybody's comfortable with the whole thing. And if you're not, please turn the show off. And young people under the age of 18, and especially really young children, make sure you have someone to listen to this show with you, because it's so important. Abuse is a scary topic, and if you haven't heard a lot about it, it might be confusing to you. So I think it's better to have someone to listen to it with you. And also for online safety. I'm a promoter of child rights, and so I promote online safety for children. And I think it's so important that young children have someone to listen to these shows with them, and that way they can have some support, right? And that the mentor or the parent or the caregiver can actually say, yeah, okay, this show's okay for you to listen to, or no, it's not. So it's so important. And, I know, it's hard we don't always have parents that care about what we're doing and what we're listening to. So if you can find a teacher, a school counselor, a coach, or someone in your life who just, who you trust, and they're good people, that might take a few minutes to listen to the show with you on an archive or something, and then you can see if it's something that you should be listening to. So we got about 25 minutes left, and we'll get right into this. We left off on Sunday. We were talking about social alienation, which I thought was very, very interesting. And that was page 58, but now we're on page 60. We're going to cover handling feelings, and I'm just reading right from this Survivor to Thriver workbook, so you can follow along if you like, www.ascasupport.org. And I'll just get started right now. Handling feelings. All adults carry feelings that are rooted in their childhood development experiences. Adult survivors, however, may have particularly powerful feelings that are left over from their abuse. These feelings can be triggered by circumstances that are somehow reminiscent of the abuse, and in the context of being a survivor may have particular importance. Anxiety is the result of not having known what to expect or how to act in social or family situations. Fear and anger are both natural responses to the threat or act of assault. Sadness results from recognizing that your parents or another trusted adult could abuse you, and shame and guilt tell you that you still hold yourself responsible for what happened. Rage is the built-up reservoir of the anger that could never be safely expressed within your family, and frustration is the feeling are left with when nothing seems to go your way. So frustration is the feeling you are left with when nothing seems to go your way. Confusion is a sign that you don't know why something has happened or what you can do about it. Alienation from others is the result of too many disappointments. Helplessness, hopelessness, and powerlessness are the feelings that tell you that you are resigned to life as it is and may have temporarily given up on it or ever being better. Your feelings always tell you something important about yourself, even if sometimes the message is frightening, troubling, or saddening. Survivors often use a number of mechanisms to numb themselves when the feelings get too strong. Some may adopt a workaholic lifestyle in order to avoid the feelings. Others may try to stuff the feelings by compulsive eating or to anesthetize them by drinking or using drugs. Certain feelings such as anger and rage may be so strong that they dominate a survivor's internal life and overshadow the other feelings that may also be there. And learning to regulate the intensity of these feelings will be an important part of your recovery. For the time being, develop the habit of asking yourself what you are feeling at different times of the day, and run through a laundry list of common feelings and notice if and when you are feeling something in particular. Make a note of the feeling and try to identify what may have triggered it. And then they have a whole bunch of questions here. And, it's just, I talk a lot about this on my blog talk shows about my feelings, that I had growing up in the home that I did. And, I never was diagnosed with anything because I never reached out for help, and I never had any counseling or therapy and should have, from a very early age. And so we all should have, our whole family. And so I had a lot of anxiety. I knew that. I was a very anxious person. Not overly anxious to where people might notice it, but, I could tell. And maybe some, a counselor or a psychologist could probably pick it out and they'd be able to notice if I was or not. But I always felt kind of anxious, And fear and anger, I don't know. I didn't have so much fear just because it was the norm at my house to grow up in that situation. It wasn't just nice and then all of a sudden went bad for me. It was just bad, and it started out bad when I was born and before I was born, and it just kind of kept going bad, and sometimes it was worse, and then sometimes it was better. So there wasn't a whole lot of fear, but there was a whole lot of anger, and just a natural response to the threat or act of assault. I had a lot of anger, I had a lot of sadness, and shame, and not too much guilt, because I never felt responsible for what was happening to me. I really didn't feel like I deserved to be treated that way. But I had a lot of, anger and sadness and shame, and I had a huge amount of rage that I had to keep under wraps all the time, because I was thinking, I could hurt someone or myself very easily, and I wanted to release it, but I just kept holding it in because I thought, well, if I actually release that rage, would I ever come back from that? I could picture myself standing out in a field somewhere and just letting it all out and screaming my head off. And I kind of dreamed about it. I wanted that to happen. I wanted to find an open space somewhere where there would be like nobody around and just go ahead and let it out. And then I thought, well, what if I don't come back from that? You know what I mean? I might not ever be able to control myself again if I let go of that. So I never did that, and I don't know whether it would have been good or not. I actually feel so much better now than I did even 3 years ago, or especially 3 years ago. I'm feeling so much better. So just in the last 3 years, the amount of healing that has taken place has been immense, and it's a very good feeling for sure, because I don't have that rage anymore. I don't have that desire to go out into a field and scream my head off. It's gone. And so obviously somewhere in there was some healing done, and it just makes me feel so much better. And I know if you're suffering with that, how horrible it is, right? Frustration, confusion and stuff, and why did this happen? And I took a good look at that my whole life. I kept trying to figure out, why was this happening in our family? Why was my mom treating me the way that she was? And why, even my dad, but mostly my mom. And I kind of could read my dad pretty good, but I could never figure out why my mom had it in for me. And because I used to work like 20 times harder than maybe most kids would to try to please her. And after a while I gave up, you know what I mean? Because I was like, nothing pleases her, so I'm just going to give up, and I'll just do drugs, and I'll just, not take care of myself, and not do the things that I should be doing. And I didn't really race out to get into trouble. I tried to avoid that. But I actually was trying to just like self-destruct and destroy myself, because I thought, hey, look what they've done to me, now I'll just finish it off. And I was halfway there, when I hit 21, and I thought, no, I don't want to destroy my life, and I really want to have a good life, and it took me so many years to get through it. So I know if you're out there suffering with this, just hang on. You have to hold on, and you have to keep that hope alive, right? So important. The alienation, too many disappointments, hopelessness and stuff. I had a lot of that, powerlessness, just being resigned to life as it is. I think towards the end, I was the last, I'd say even 5 years ago, I was feeling like, okay, this is just all there's ever going to be. I'm just always going to be stuck with these feelings. But about 3 years ago, I had some major healing happen. And, I still have my moments, and I still have days that are very hard. And I have times that are very hard, and I have things going on in my life that are very hard, just like everybody else. So it's not a perfect, it's not a perfect thing. But the thing is I have learned how to cope a lot better than I used to. And that's why I say just keep holding on, because better days are coming. And if we can just learn these coping mechanisms and learn what works for us, I think that's a big, huge, positive move in the right direction, right? Getting a coping list. There's lots of good websites out there with coping lists. And Michael C. Irving, he's a psychotherapist and a sculptor, and he's designed the Child Abuse Monument here in Canada, in Toronto, Ontario. And you can go onto the website, just go on to www.irvingstudios.com, and you can catch the links from there, or you can go on, just type in your browser, Child Abuse Monument, and it will come up. And on that website is some great information for adult survivors. There's coping lists that we can design for ourselves. He gives you the example, and then you can go on to get these coping lists sort of tailor-made to yourself, and then we can learn how to handle these moments, like when we're feeling so down or we're just so angry. There's all kinds of coping lists that help us to stay grounded and to stay focused, so that we can keep moving in a positive direction, in a slow, steady, positive direction. I think that's the best way, right? And so it's just, it's important that we all get that help, right? So, just keep reaching out. That's all I can say. They have journal questions here regarding this section of handling feelings. And the question is number 91. Do you have strong feelings of anxiety, fear, depression, and anger that threaten to overwhelm you? Question 92. Do you need to withdraw periodically from the world in order to regain control of yourself? Question 93. Do you have difficulty recognizing and expressing your feelings? And we're supposed to be answering these, right, if we were going to do this workbook. The first 34 pages is devoted to safety first. And that's so important. I went through that whole section in the first part of these blog talk shows. And, we've been covering this in the evenings at my 9:30 shows. In the evening, Child Abuse Prevention and Human Rights Abuse Prevention is up to us. We've been doing this for weeks now. So you can go back if you want to listen to those, all the way back maybe 2 weeks now, for all the evening night shows that I've done. And but if you want to, it'd just be easier to go to the website and get this workbook and read that first chapter, Safety First. It's like 34 pages, but it's so important, because if we're going to work through this workbook, we have to make sure that we are okay to work through it and far enough along in our healing to work through it, right? So important. So question 93, do you have difficulty recognizing and expressing your feelings? And question 94, do you tend to have an all or nothing experience of feelings? Question 95. Do powerful feelings trigger the desire to eat, drink, take drugs, or engage in other compulsive activities? And question 96. Do strong feelings leave you feeling disconnected, numb, or afraid that you are going crazy? And question 97. Have you learned to disconnect yourself from your feelings by refusing to pay attention to them? And question 98. Have you ever lost control of your anger and abused someone else? And question 99. Do you often feel confused by what you feel? And question 100. Are you inclined to feel a certain feeling more than others, particularly anger or depression? So yeah, we can answer these questions and take a good look at it. And then as we work through the workbook, which actually starts now, it's going to, this wasn't even the workbook, all this stuff. This was just the beginning. Chapter 4 starts the workbook, and it's stage 1, remembering. So these were just questions to sort of help us to see just where we're at and whether or not we're ready to start even going through the workbook, right? So important. So yeah, I mean, these are some really good questions. And like, I know for myself, do you have strong feelings of anxiety, fear, depression, and anger? I know I used to, and I used to have, I'd say mainly a lot of depression and anger, and anxiety, but not so much fear, but just a lot of anxiety and depression and anger. And do you need to withdraw periodically from the world in order to regain control of yourself? I never really had to do that, but I just definitely spent a lot of time alone and didn't really reach out to anybody or tell anybody that I was feeling down. Most people didn't realize, because I'd go to work, I'd be fine during the day, and then I'd come home and it would just all come out. And so I would sit for hours and hours and hours in my own space, just getting more and more depressed. Right? And it was hard to deal with, for sure. Difficulty expressing feelings and stuff, I think that's very much a survivor's problem, right? I mean, it's an issue that we have to work through, and it's just hard. We have to learn how to express these feelings, right? And how to handle them once we actually do acknowledge them, right? And do you tend to have an all or nothing experience of feelings? Do powerful feelings trigger the desire to eat, drink, take drugs, or engage in other compulsive activities? I don't seem to have a problem with that. I didn't, because I quit doing drugs at the age of 21. And I don't really drink, I'm not a big drinker, and I try to stay away from it because I know that I use things as a crutch. So I stay away from alcohol because I know I'd probably just use it as a crutch, right? So I just avoid it. And once in a while, I don't mind having a drink, but it's very rare. I wouldn't even say like, two or three times a year or something, I might have a drink or something. I just stick to my coffee. But my crutch is my cigarettes, and I quit smoking 14 months ago. And then I started up at Christmas time because my sweetheart is sick, and he was starting to kind of go downhill. And I was starting to stress out a little bit and feeling like I was going to have to call a coroner because he was really kind of getting bad. He was spiraling down, and well, now he's fine, and I'm still smoking. So I'm like, well, that was dumb because I had quit for 14 months, so now I got to try to quit again. But I do use cigarettes for that very reason, and I've been smoking forever. So it's hard, and I wanted to quit, and I did such a good job. So I'll just keep going, and that's what we have to do. Keep going. That's all I can say, right? Just don't give up. Just because I started smoking doesn't mean I can't try again. And that's the same for anybody else who's out there, who's suffering from this kind of thing. We can just try again, right? If we get off the path a little bit, that's all right, because we're not perfect. And who's perfect? Nobody's perfect, right? We can just try again, and I think that's so important, right, to not be too hard on ourselves, because we've already had so much to deal with and so much pain and anguish in our hearts, and in our lives. And so, I try not to be too hard on myself. I am hard on myself in other areas of my life, a little bit of a perfectionist on some things. Like, I don't like to make a mistake, and that's just because I don't want to, because that's the fear. Maybe there was some fear there, because, I used to, at home, whether I was good or bad didn't really matter. My mom mistreated me whether I was behaving or not. So, I mean, I could just walk in the room and if she didn't like the look on my face, that would be it. So, I really tried to do everything right, and until I realized that it wasn't going to help and that wasn't going to get her to stop abusing me, and then I just decided that it didn't matter what I did. So then I started doing drugs, and I was about 12 years old, and was doing like PCP and angel dust and really doing some heavy duty drugs at a very young age, and was just thinking, I don't care, I'll just do drugs. And it didn't matter to me. She was gonna mistreat me whether I was doing drugs or not. So I just sort of spiraled downward, right? So I think even today I have a little bit of that in me. I don't like for people to be mad at me, because my mom was mad at me like all the time. So, I think there might have been a little bit of fear there, I guess. Have you ever lost control of your anger and abused someone else? I have never. I used to do that when I was a kid. I used to beat up on kids, and not bad, but I'd slap them around, and if I didn't like something that they did, I'd definitely slap them or punch them or push them down or whatever. But I was just doing what my mom was doing to me, so I thought that it was okay, right? Then my mom would catch me doing it, and I would get another beating for doing that, and I couldn't believe it because I was like, hey, I'm just doing what I learned from you. And then people would be thinking, yeah, somebody should smack that brat, you know what I mean? So then I'd get a beating, and everybody would be thinking, yeah, that's what she deserves, right? But actually, I was just mirroring what my mom was doing to me. And my dad a little bit, right? But mostly my mom. So, I was sort of a messed up kid for sure. And I got better as I got older because I realized how much I was hurting. And I thought, well, I don't want to hurt other people. You know what I mean? So I really try hard not to hurt other people in every way. You know what I mean? Verbally, emotionally. I try to, if anything, help build people up because I know people have suffered enough. We've all suffered enough. And even if you weren't abused, people have hardships in their life and things that happen to them where they don't need any more beating up. You know what I mean? They need love and compassion and goodness and kindness, And so that's how I choose to live my life. And but I had a lot of internalized anger and rage and stuff, but it was mostly just from the abuse, but it wasn't towards anyone, you know what I mean? That's why I couldn't lash out at anybody, so I just kept it inside, and I didn't want to hurt anybody, so I would just leave it inside, and so of course I was killing myself, like it was just eating me up, right, until about like 3 years ago. So it's major, it's such a major thing, and that's why we have to stop child abuse. We have to stop it and nip it in the bud before we're going to have so many adult survivors out there who are struggling their whole entire lives, pretty much, unless they get help, the proper help. They're going to struggle through, and it's just going to get worse. We have to find a way to really make a difference in society. I think we can do it, and that's why I'm doing this show, you know what I mean, to raise my voice and just be one more voice with every single other voice out there who are saying it's got to stop, but we have to find a positive, proactive way to deal with it. Getting mad and angry just doesn't help. We're going to have to find something that works, and we're going to have to really build up our communities, and it starts in our own homes. We have to stop abusing those that we love. So, and we have to stop hurting people that we love. And that's what I said. I was not going to carry on the abuse that my parents, the cycle of abuse. I said, no way, I'm just not doing it. And so, I beat that. But, so many people, like my mom, grew up in an abusive home, and she didn't break the cycle, and neither did my dad. And so that's what happened, right? They passed it on, and that's what happens in so many people's families because the tensions are so high and the pain is so severe that if they don't get help and they don't make a decision that they're not going to abuse their children, they end up abusing their children because they were abused. And that doesn't always happen, because I know people that don't abuse their children just on purpose because, well, they wouldn't anyway, but because they were abused, they've made a pact and they said they were never going to do it. And so it's not like it's something that all abused people would abuse their children. That's not true. Just in my family's case, that's what happened to my mom. And she was in a marriage that was she was so unhappy and she was just so miserable, right? And never got any help, right? So hard. So very hard. And I know there's so many people out there suffering with this. So the conclusion of this one part, it's the conclusion on page 63. It says, reading the information in this chapter may have stirred up many feelings in you. Recognizing that child abuse may continue to impact you past your childhood is a necessary step in your recovery. The tendency to sabotage yourself in various aspects of your life does not mean that you are a bad person. It means that you are a wounded person. Identifying the wounds and acknowledging the difficulties that grow out of them is an essential part of healing. Facing the anger that you have turned against yourself and possibly against others represents a cleansing of these wounds. As with the treatment of any wound, physical or psychic, the process will cause some pain. And this may lead you to question whether the process of recovery is really good for you. Because you have become so used to pain in all of its myriad forms for so many years, you may wonder whether recovery can have positive effects. And when these doubts begin to surface, remember that you have survived the torment as a child, and that this is the worst part of the abuse. As an adult, you have new capabilities, new choices, and a great deal more control over your life. Be open to new understandings of what you experienced. Allow yourself to draw inspiration from the positive elements in your life and your friends who support your recovery, empathetic family members, your children if you have them, your spouse or lover who accepts you as a special person, or your therapist who is committed to helping you find your true self. There are many people like you who came from total despair and confusion about their lives and recovered from their abuse. Others, such as your ASCA co-participants, are on the journey with you as well, and we all can find our inner strengths and use them to turn our lives around. And so that's the conclusion of that one section that we just went through. It took a few weeks to do it, but isn't that so awesome? We already survived the worst of it, and that's what gets me through the day. Is I have flashbacks, and I have daily reminders of my mom's voice ringing in my head, and just the beatings that I took, but they're not, they don't mean as like what they used to be to me. They used to be horrific, and now I know that I have love in my life, and I have people in my life who care about me, and I have so many friends that truly are here for me, and that makes all the difference, and that's why I say, keep reaching out. Even 6 months ago, I was pretty much on my own, and sitting in my apartment thinking I'm going to write my blog. I had some good support, but nobody really knew my story, and I would just talk a little bit about things to certain people, and as soon as I started writing my story, I thought, man, I'm reaching out, and as soon as I put my hand out there to reach out, I'm telling you, that's when all the hands came back to me. That's when all these hands said, hey, you're reaching out to us. We're going to reach out to you. And all of a sudden, I have all these hands reaching out to me, and I have never felt that in my entire life. I cannot even explain it to you. If you haven't experienced it yet, I'm telling you, it was worth it to reach out. I thought, what do I have to lose? You know what I mean? I can't be hurt any more than I've already been hurt, and I don't allow people to abuse me, so I'm safe there. I just absolutely refuse to let people abuse me. So, I thought, okay, well, what's it going to hurt for me to reach out, and so I decided to do that, and I am so happy that I made that decision, because that is huge, huge, huge in my walk, in my healing process, and it allowed me to learn how to trust people, and it allowed people to learn that they could trust me, which was a huge issue, because I grew up in a family where people just didn't trust, and we didn't trust anybody, and we didn't trust anybody in the family. There was no trust anywhere, and we didn't trust life. We didn't trust anything. So, I just grew up an untrusting person. But I thought, hey, I want people to trust me. You know what I mean? So I need to be able to trust them too, and give them the benefit of the doubt, just as well as I need them to give me the benefit of the doubt. If I want people, in other words, treat people how you would like to be treated. And so I thought, okay, I'm reaching out. And sure enough, all these hands came reaching out to me, and these are all these people that are my friends, and they're probably listening right now. And I thank you so much, because I tell you what, I cannot explain what it means to my heart, because I have never experienced this amount of support in my entire lifetime. And so I thank you so much for everything, and it all stems from this one family that intervened, when I was 13 and a half years old, going on 14. They intervened on my behalf, and it was the first time anybody had ever stepped in and said what my mom was doing to me was wrong. And I up until then, everybody had said that what my mom was doing to me was right, that she was bashing my head in and beating me senseless, and ridiculing me and calling me names and spitting in my face and slapping me around, all the time. And so I was made to feel that I was kind of worthless and useless, you know what I mean, and just kind of bad. And this family stepped in and said, you're awesome, you're a good girl, you don't deserve to be treated like that, and we'd love to have you as our daughter. We would have been proud to have you as our daughter. They told me that years later. And so, this is what you all mean to me. I thank you so much for your support and for your friendship. I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and I'm so happy to stand with them. I have a book out, and it is called A Life of Death, The Redemption, by Lori Ann Smith, and it's in biographies and memoirs at www.lulu.com, and you can find it there, A Life of Death, The Redemption. It's number 8500324. This book is only possible because of Donna Shear and Sandra Dawn Potter, who have made this possible for me, for my inner voice, to have a voice, and to really just to break the chains that were on my prison doors of silence for so long. But all of you people that are supporting me, I thank you so much, because it means everything to me, and I just want you to know that. So thank you so much. And please check out their website, www.dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com. You can find great information on there regarding child abuse issues, signs and symptoms especially. We need to know these things. How to report child abuse, so important. It has to be reported properly or you can ruin a case for a child. And we could save a child's life by getting involved. And I'll be on tomorrow morning, 5:30, one child abuse survivor to another, and then it's Mountain Standard Time. Then Donna Shear is hosting Dreamcatchers Talk Radio, and that is www.blogtalkradio.com/Dreamcatchers. And I'll be co-hosting. That's tomorrow night, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope you can join us live. That's on Blog Talk Radio, and I'll be passing on links and everything. Get a hold of me if you need to chat, if you want to chat or just need an ear or a shoulder. And I'm telling you, my heart is with you, and keep reaching out and hold on to that keep holding on to that hope, hold on to it, because there is hope and there is light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm telling you, it's the truth. So take care, everybody. You're in my heart, you're in my prayers, and thank you so much for everything. Have a good night.